Ten jest najnowszy.
Pan nas zawsze uczył, panie
Pan
ordynatorze.
zostawi. Co pan myśli?
Progresja.
Kieślowski said that he would have preferred it if Polish television had showed his episodes 2 at a time, instead of their method of showing one episode per week. When you watch Dekalog 2 right after Dekalog 1, you see why. Dekalog 2 in some ways feels like a sequel to 1, set 40 years later. I mean, it still takes place in the same time and in the same apartment building, so it's not the future and the characters are different. But still, the themes carry through to make 2 feel almost like a mirror to 1. So, the commandment for Decalogue 2 is, I'm not sure. Officially, it says, you shall not bear false witness, but it deals with a few others, like, you shall not commit adultery, and maybe you shall not kill. I actually think it acts as a metaphor for it. You shall not make for yourself an idol in the form of anything in heaven above, or on the earth beneath, or in the waters below. This might seem like a stretch, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was also the intention. The episode finds Dorota in a bit of a catch-22. Her husband lies dying in the hospital, and her lover is abroad. She's pregnant with a baby, her lover's baby no less. She can abort the baby so that, should her husband live, he will never know, or she can keep the baby and hope her husband dies so that she can join her lover. There's no easy way out of this trap, but she put herself in it. When talking to the doctor, played by Alexander Bardini, Dorota claims that she loves 2 men at once. One gives her peace and security, while the other makes her feel... And she doesn't finish the sentence. So here's why my view of the story kicks in. She loves 2 men. One, a sanctified love, and one, an illicit love. This plays into the false idol's commandment, as worshipping a false idol is seen as spiritually adulterous. And indeed, adultery is used as a metaphor many, many times in the Old Testament to describe the nation of Israel, as they would often turn away from Yahweh into false idols. Kieślowski doesn't leave it at that, though, but he brings a baby into the mix. And let's face it, I love kids, but they do tend to complicate screwed up relationships, which had me scratching my head, thinking of what the unborn baby could signify. Shame, yeah. Perhaps truth and the shame within it. You know, it's difficult to hide an affair when there's a living testament to it. A product of your affair that you must care for and nurture and love. Her abortion would only serve to bear false witness to her husband, living a lie that no affair had happened. And ironically enough, the doctor saves the child by lying. But we'll get to that in a minute, because I want to get back to tying this into Decalogue 1. In Decalogue 1, and for anyone who has yet to see it, stop watching right now unless you don't mind spoilers. Well, 1 deals with the fate of a boy's death. 2 is the choice of whether or not to give birth to a child. The juxtaposition might make it seem like 2 is the opposite of 1, but that's far from true. Fate still plays a large role. Dorota urges the doctor in several scenes to declare whether her husband will live or die. The doctor refuses to say, as it's not his position to make the judgment. He says that even though some people seem hopeless, they miraculously recover. He cannot say for certain that her husband would die. To do so would be dishonest. The doctor and Dorota serve as foils to each other. Dorota may possibly have a dead husband and a dead baby, and the doctor's family, 2 children, his wife, and father, all died in the war. Also, Dorota has a passion for destruction, while the doctor nurtures. Kieślowski best illustrates this with the use of plants in the episode. We see the doctor tend to wilting plants, while Dorota tears apart a plant. But what's interesting is that in the scene where she tries to kill the plant recovers, despite her torment, foreshadowing the recovery of her husband. And as I said earlier that Dorota has put herself in this position regarding the affair, I believe that it goes deeper than just hiding the truth from her husband. Much like how she tore apart the plant, her adultery destroyed the health of her husband. It's only after she rejects her lover on the phone and decides not to abort the child that he recovers. His cancer is a manifestation of the sickness in their relationship. And the doctor fits in as this guy that really doesn't like Dorota, and I can't blame him, but also doesn't want to see another family die. After the whole episode of him saying that he cannot tell her the fate of her husband, he finally tells her her husband will die, just to save the baby.
Niech pani tego nie robi.
Nie rozumiem.
Niech pani tego nie robi.
Dlaczego?
Bo on umrze.
Now, some critics have said that it's just to shut her up, and that could be true. But the doctor serves as the preserver of life in this episode against the destructive nature of some. When he decides her husband's fate, a miracle happens to her husband Andres, and like the bee pulling itself out of the glass, he completely recovers. I would say it's despite the doctor, but I believe the doctor wished for both of them to live. The episode culminates with Dorota playing in the orchestra and Andres walking into the doctor's office, declaring himself cured and elated that he will become a father. And perhaps one of the most affecting scenes I've seen on television, Andres asked the doctor, "Do you know what it means to have a child?" Yes, he does. It haunts him every single day. The fact that Andres expresses joy that he is to have a child didn't sit right with me the first time I watched it. It made me uncomfortable. I wanted the child to live, and he to live as well, but like any normal person, we want the perpetrator, the cheater, to get her just desserts. We're not given that. He forgives her and accepts the child as his own. This goes back to my argument that this is a metaphor for worshiping other gods. The Jews would betray God, and they would face some kind of punishment, but God would ultimately forgive them of their sins and welcome them back into his arms. Andres acts as a godlike figure by wholeheartedly accepting Dorota and her soon-to-be child, forgiving her of all her sins against him. Accepting the child as his own signifies accepting her shame and sin as his own as well, and recognizing and gleefully embracing his duty to maintain life. The child may have been conceived out of sin, but the child is still a child of God and should be loved. I gotta say, the ending is both totally unsatisfying and satisfying at the same time.